Welcome, one and all, to the Viper's Nest, where I will find some more obscure lore to talk about someday. I promise. It's gonna happen. Eowyn, shh. Play with your tablet. Sorry about that. My daughter tried to interrupt.
Why?
Well, I'm obviously not talking. Eowyn, shh. I'm trying to record a video, Eowyn. Just shh. Be over there. You're fine. Anyway, where today I am going to have a casual little kind of sit down / review of The Boys Season 3. There was a lot I liked about this particular season. There were some things that I did not like. Also, my son is very much not happy that I put him down for a nap. That's a real shame, isn't it? So I am not going to go through and break down the entire plot because there would be a lot to unpack there, and well, I just don't have that kind of time because I have to leave in a little bit, over an hour or so. So the good of The Boys Season 3. Wow, good grief, what is going on? Oh, I accidentally opened YouTube. That's what's going on. Anyway, what I did like about The Boys is I think they took pretty much all of the main characters down some pretty interesting character paths. Especially Billy Butcher, even though he kind of did a 180 and went back to the way he was in past seasons. So, like, it started out that little Huey was working with the I don't remember the bureau's exact name, but basically they were an investigative bureau that was meant to, like, police the superpowered people and stuff like that. And at the start of the season, Billy Butcher was also actually kind of working with him a little bit, working within the lines, as it were. But given that this is The Boys, well, that doesn't last very long. Hello, Sherlock. Can I help you? You just coming over here to headbutt me? Is that it? It's like the universe is conspiring to not let me get this video out. How fun. Anyway, yeah, so Billy Butcher actually, like, working with the government, kind of, to crack down on the soups. But, like I said, that went out the window pretty quick. Huey tried to, like, stay the course, but also eventually figured out that, yeah, alright, this staying in the lines thing isn't working because, spoiler alert, and I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you've seen The Boys Season 3, so yeah, there you go. Spoiler alert, the head of the super police department is herself a covert super person, which, she's the one who exploded all of the heads during Season 2. So, yeah, that happened. I'd say that my most favorite of the characters in Season 3 were actually Frenchie and Kimiko. I really liked how their relationship developed kind of into romance, but also maybe not necessarily into romance, because they essentially just straight up say that they're each other's family at this point. Hello, Spicy Ranch. Are you going to get in your co-host chair? Nice. All right, I got my co-host. My co-host, Spicy Ranch, is here. Yeah, I really liked where their relationship went, where it was like, are they gonna romance or are they not going to? And from where they kind of left off at the end of Season 3, it's maybe. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting thing they got going on there. Also, I very much enjoyed I almost said Dean Winchester. It's not his actual name. Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy was a very intriguing character, and I'll get to him in a bit. Yeah, overall, I really liked where the story went, where the character relations went, like the relationship between Butcher and the rest of the boys, the relationship between Huey and Starlight, the relationship between Kimiko and Frenchie, MM. I'm not gonna say his name because I hate that name. MM trying to, like, balance being there for his daughter while also, helping the boys against, the corrupt supers. Special shout out to Giancarlo Esposito as Stan Edgar and being like almost the one person in existence who is not actually afraid of Homelander. Very cool. All around, a lot of freaking cool stuff. So, now on to the stuff I didn't like, which isn't terribly much. It's almost more down to the way they do things with this show rather than the things that actually happen in the show themselves, which, I mean, I'm definitely not okay with some of the stuff they goes down in the show. The big one, right off the top, is a particular scene in the first episode. It's almost the very first scene of the very first episode of Season 3. I'm not going to tell you what happens in this scene because, one, my daughter's sitting about 30 feet away from me, and two, I don't want to, put a bullet in the head of the chance of this video possibly getting monetized at some point. But you okay, Eowyn? All right. But if you have seen The Boys Season 3, you know what scene I'm talking about. There's no way you can't not know. So, the reason I did not like this scene is, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old and I'm just kind of over, I guess, I don't know, maybe you can call it like shock value of TV or something like that. What you doing, Whisker? Why you eyeballing my microphone? Okay, well, thank you for carefully walking past it rather than jumping on it. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of the same problem I had with, like, Game of Thrones and Black Sails. It's like, all of the stuff, the nudity in the show, like, look, I'm not against, like, a good sex scene. Like, I just mentioned Black Sails. There was a really good one in that one. It was when Maxine and Calico Jack and Anne Bonny were all like, they were having a three-way, and instead of just being like, hey, look, there's boobs on the screen, it actually went out of its way to like show that Maxine and Jack were actually forming some kind of a connection, which weirded out Anne Bonny. And the thing was, like, it was very well shot. It didn't linger. It didn't overstay its welcome. Like, that's a good sex scene right there. I appreciated the film craft behind that, but that's that seems like the exception to the rule. The rest of them, it's like, okay, other than putting boobs on the screen for people to enjoy and or penises on the screen for people to enjoy, it's like, that's great and all, but how does any of this actually further the story? I mean, I guess maybe since this was like an Amazon Prime thing, they could just make the episodes as long as they wanted, but most other things, they have to, work within the bounds of like airing in a slot on like TV. The episodes have to be a certain length, and you have these, scenes that are taking up screen time and not necessarily adding anything to the story or the characters. I mean, maybe the case could be made that in this certain scene, it's showing that, a lot of soups are degenerates and they're going to do degenerate things, which, if that's the case, sure, fine, but I think we already established that in, like, the first 2 seasons of the show. So was this particular scene really necessary? I personally don't think it was, and even if it was, I'm going to point to another movie that came out recently. Movie. I'm talking about a show and I'm saying movies. Whatever. Another thing that came out recently. Prey on Hulu. Which, if you haven't watched that, you absolutely should. That's a fantastic movie. But what I'm specifically talking about here is that Prey demonstrated that it is more than possible to show just, pardon me, just enough of something happening that your mind puts the rest together. It does this very well. Like, there's a lot of what I think are called, like, gory discretion shots in Prey, Like, you see something happening, it's obviously gory, you know what's happening, but it is obscured just enough that you don't see the actual thing happening. Like, the big ones are when the Predator kills and skins a snake, when he decapitates a guy with his collapsible shield, when he gets another guy with the net gun. Like, you see just enough that you understand what's happening in these particular people. And I feel like the boys could have gone that same route with some of the stuff they do. And like I said, I don't know. Maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm too old to be watching this stuff. I don't know. It's just not my particular cup of tea. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying I personally, in my opinion, did not like some of that stuff. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about, and really the big thing, I really enjoyed Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy. And I see a lot of comments flying around on the internet that, oh man, like, we thought Soldier Boy was going to be this big hero. Turns out he's actually worse than Homelander. Now, I'm not saying that Soldier Boy is not a narcissistic, abusive dickhead, because he's absolutely that. But is he as bad as Homelander? I'm not willing to say yes or no to this. But I would say I think Soldier Boy is a bit better than Homelander, even though he's still an absolute shit of a human being. I think it's mainly because I understand Soldier Boy a little bit more than I do Homelander. Now, I'm not going to try to speak to the psychology of these characters because, there's more people on the internet who are better suited to speaking of psychology than a college dropout like myself. Now, granted, I did take one semester of psychology class, but, it's not near enough. Actually, hang on. Let me look something up here real quick. Let me do some fact checking. I think there is actually someone else on the YouTubes who is a psychologist or a therapist or something who has... I was right. Okay. So if you would like a good, solid breakdown of all of these characters from the boys that I'm talking about, well, maybe not all of them, but most of them. Stop that. Good grief. Sorry. Anyway, the person you should go look up to, and I will leave a link in the description of this video. Her name is Georgia Dow. She is a therapist, and she actually does, psychological breakdowns of these characters. So I recommend you go and watch her because she is much more qualified to speak on this than me. But, back to the point at hand. The reason that I understand and even empathize a little bit with Soldier Boy over Homelander. So, Homelander, to break it down way too much, Homelander is the way he is because, well, one, he wasn't really raised by parents, as it were, and also he's, the most powerful man in existence. He can do whatever he wants, and no one's really able to tell him no. So, which leads into the fact of, why he is so terrifying as a villain, because essentially nobody can stop him. But Soldier Boy, I feel like I said, I can understand and empathize with him a little bit because, if you've seen the show, you know. If you haven't, why the hell are you listening to me? Go watch the show, unless you can't. If you're like me, it took me a long time to actually get the chance to watch the show because I'm a full-time stay-at-home dad of 2, and I'm not watching this show around my kids. But Soldier Boy, he was around during, the 1940s, World War II, got frozen, in the 80s, woke up. It's basically like a twist on the Captain America story. So one thing Soldier Boy has that I recognize from real life is the fact that he comes from that time, the 40s and 50s. Here, let me draw a very, very basic parallel. So my dad, my adopted dad, as it were, he was also born in the 40s and grew up through that particular time. And one of the, like, practically the only thing he has in common with Soldier Boy, which, like I said, this connection is very minimal because my dad, my adopted dad, was, like, basically the coolest dad anyone can ask for. My biological dad, also pretty damn cool. I'm not going to talk about that. Look, I could devote entire episodes to just talking about how awesome my dads are. I'm not going to. Back to the point. So, my dad was born and raised in the same time that, around the same time that Soldier Boy was active. And the one thing they have in common, Soldier Boy and my adoptive dad, is that they came from that time that instilled within them that whole, like, men are tough. Men don't show pain. Men shut up and get the job done. And, okay, that actually just reminded me of a story I'm going to tell about my adoptive dad that speaks to this very point. Okay, so my adopted dad, he ran a machine shop since, like, before I was born. He was always working to provide for his family. But one thing he had a problem with was that he used to get, like, really freaking bad ingrowing toenails. So when I was 13, I came home from hanging out with my friends one night. Popped into the downstairs area to, put my stuff away. And I noticed that my dad's bedroom door is open and his light's on. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go, stop in, say hi to my dad. So my dad is sitting on the edge of this bed with this towel under his foot, one cigarette lit hanging out the side of his mouth, and he's just straight up cutting off and out the whole big toenail on his right foot. And this towel is just fucking soaked in blood. Sorry, I'm cursing. My daughter's got her headphones in. Hopefully she can't hear me. But yeah, so he's just with like this makeshift surgery kit that he got from somewhere, is just cutting off his own toenail. And I like freak out because he's bleeding all over this towel. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? Do you need to go to the hospital? And he just looks up at me and just says, no, it's alright, boy. I'm gonna tape this up in a minute. So I like go running upstairs to get my mom. She's upstairs cooking dinner. I'm like, Mom, Dad's like amputating his toe or something. I think he needs to go to the hospital. So my mom and me rush back downstairs, and as we get down there, there's the toenail just blood-soaked laying on the towel, and my dad is just taping up the place where his toenail used to be. My mom freaks out, and she's like, oh my God, Richard, do you need to go to the hospital? And he's just very casually wrapping up his toenail, and he just says, no, it's all right, Donna, I've done this before. And then after he tapes it up, cleans himself up, and just walks up the stairs for dinner. Like, nothing freaking happened. So it's like, not only during this entire exercise of him cutting off his toenail did he like ever once utter a peep. He didn't grunt. He didn't scream. He just made no noise. Plus the fact that apparently he's done this before and we didn't know about it. Like that's the kind of tough that my adopted dad was. Like, the only time he ever like took a day off from work was just when he was like so sick that like he couldn't stand. Like, the only time he took a day off from work was when he finally determined that it would be a safety hazard like to himself and others if he actually went to work. And after he amputated his entire freaking toenail and just wrapped it up with like gauze and athletic tape, yeah, sure enough, just back to work he went the very next day. Not even freaking limping. Just, like, my dad, he had to have been like top 10 toughest guys ever. And I see the point is that's very obviously reflected in Soldier Boy, because he also came from that time where, like I said, men don't show weakness. Men get the job done. He says it himself perfectly, where I'm gonna scoot up on the mic so I can quote this, and hopefully my daughter won't hear it. Okay, she's got her headphones in. Yeah, Soldier Boy, he's like talking to Huey, and he says like, hey, you know what I do when I'm scared or freaked out? Not a fucking thing, so I'm not a pussy. And like that's the mentality that Soldier Boy has, which I understand because I was raised by a man who was also from that particular time period where, like, the whole men tough, men do the hard things was really, like, beaten into people back then. So I feel like Soldier Boy, like, I empathize with him a bit more because that just toughness that was instilled in him by the time he was raised kind of reminds me of my dad a little bit. But also, from what I remember in the show, I would not put Soldier Boy as bad as Homelander because, like, it was obviously suggested, but never proven that while Soldier Boy did abuse his team physically, which, again, not cool, he didn't sexually abuse any of them. At least I don't think he did. Like, maybe a case could be made for Crimson Countess, because, like, they had a thing going on, but also Soldier Boy was like, I actually did love her, but, Soldier Boy being Soldier Boy and, the crazy person that he is, there could have been some, like, sexual abuse going on there. I didn't see any evidence of it, but it's also one of those things, like, I could very easily be convinced that was the thing. So Soldier Boy is still an abusive dickhead, but I feel like he's not as bad as Homelander, even though he was willing to slap Ryan around a little bit, Homelander's son. But I feel like that, rather than that being like a conscious thing on Soldier Boy's part, that could also be a thing, like a product of the time he was raised in, because, people were a lot more hands-on with kids back then as we are now. And look, I'm saying that, and you could call all that, like, allegorical. Like, I've heard things, I'm pretty sure it's true. Also, I'm not a historian, so I can't say for certain, but that's the general feel I get from, like, people talking about stuff, like, the way things were back then versus the way they are now. Like, on how the culture's changed and stuff. That was quite the tangent, wasn't it? Yeah, good stuff. So, like I said, on the whole, I really liked The Boys Season 3. There were a few things I did not like that first bit of Episode 1. Pretty much almost the entirety of the episode so aptly titled Herogasm. I felt like that wasn't particularly necessary. Whatever. Those are both personal taste for me, personally. I can't positively call them good or bad because I don't know. I personally didn't like those things. If for some reason, again, you're watching this and you haven't seen The Boys Season 3 and you watched the other 2 seasons and liked them, then I recommend you go watch The Boys Season 3. It's quite good. Also, Dean Winchester's in it. How can you possibly turn that down? Answer, you can't. Unless you have kids, in which case you should absolutely not watch this series around kids. Don't do that. I didn't. I had to wait a good long time before I found a chance to binge the entire thing. And I'm glad I waited, because there's a lot of things in the show that kids should not see. Anyway, thank you for watching. Leave me a comment, like, and subscribe. I know this was a bit rushed, because, scheduling. Trying to find time to do things. It's a thing, so I figured like a quick little stop in and chat would be good to bridge the gap between now and my next Sunless Skies episode, which is coming. It's just a matter of finding enough time to actually sit down and do it. Plus, more prep work goes into those episodes than you might think, but it's coming, I promise. It won't be tomorrow or the day after. I don't know when this is actually going to get uploaded because my internet's slow, but sometime this week I am endeavoring to make some time to sit down and play more Sunless Skies. I promise. It's coming. I'll try to have another video out this week. Yeah, parenting, man. It's freaking difficult. I recommend it, though. Anyway, like I said, like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'd appreciate it. And I will see you on the next episode. Have a wonderful day.